Please be aware that the comments, views, opinions shared on this podcast are not meant to diagnose a medical problem and/or legal problem. If you do have a medical problem or legal problem, kindly contact a professional.
Welcome to An Apple a Day, a podcast, a resource, a community. Share your experiences and learn from others as we overcome barriers and learn to live a happy, healthy life with a disability. Welcome to the community. Here's your host, Jimmy Apple.
Welcome to another episode of An Apple a Day. I'm your host, Jimmy Apple. How you doing today, my friends? You feeling good? You feeling strong? You feeling better than you did yesterday? Excellent. You can't ask for better than that, huh? Hey, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You're going to the doctors. You're taking your medication. You're doing your exercises. Can't ask for more, right? Before we start, I want to remind you, An Apple a Day is brought to you by www.famousapple.com. Famousapple.com is the home site for this podcast. You get a minute, go over there, check us out. I think you'll enjoy it. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at jimmy@famousapple.com. You want to get in touch with Famous Apple, you can email Famous Apple at admin@famousapple.com. Let me ask you, have you ever been involved in a conversation with a group of people and you're talking about something, I don't know, something at work or something at home or raising kids or something like that, and then the one odd person in the group chimes in and they start telling you about a story about something that happened years ago and how they handled it and how it's similar to the topic of the conversation. And people start, turning away, rolling their eyes, and not really paying attention to what that person's saying. They start having their own little conversation with somebody else. Do you ever notice that, Deb? Have you ever been involved in something like that? I have, and I usually feel embarrassed for the person. It makes me cringe, actually. I just feel embarrassed for them. I want to crawl in a hole for them because I know people are just ignoring them at that point. And that's got to make them feel, I don't know, marginalized, right? You would think. I would think. But we're going to discuss that today. We're going to discuss about living in the past. And I'm not talking about your grandfather, your grandmother telling you how they walked to school in 3 feet of snow, uphill each way, with bags on their feet and stuff like that. Grandparents are great for telling you what happened back in the olden days. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm talking about really pertains to people who became disabled while they were working. And it really happens about living in the past. This happens to just about 99% of people who have become permanently disabled. I don't even think they realize that they're doing it. I know I was doing it, and I didn't realize I was doing it until someone brought it to my attention. And when they brought it to my attention, it was kind of embarrassing, I will say that. But I'm glad they did. And I want to try and save maybe someone the embarrassment. Maybe if you might even see yourself in this. And it's just something you might become aware of. But let's get started here. This is going to be a good one, I think. Let me ask you, when you meet someone new, now that you're disabled, and if they don't know that you're disabled and they say to you, what do you do? Do you automatically say, well, I'm disabled? Or do you say something like, well, I used to be the head of a company, or I used to be the head of a department in this big company, or I used to be an over-the-road truck driver, or something like that? Or what do you tell them? Why don't you tell them, well, I'm disabled? Are you embarrassed by that fact? You did nothing wrong. You became disabled. It's a fact of life. It happened. You're not lying. You became disabled. But many of us don't want to face that fact. I think for a guy, it's like you feel like less of a man, or for a woman, you feel like less of a woman when you're talking to people at work. I know for me, there used to be a time when my wife was leaving for work in the morning. As soon as she left for work, I'd shut the door and close the blinds because I didn't want to see other people going to work. It made me feel bad. And then I'd get in conversations with friends over a weekend, and I'd shy away from conversations. Or I'd poke my nose in and start talking about what I did at my job. And after a while, you're talking about your glory days, as Bruce Springsteen put it on his record titled Glory Days. You start sharing your glory days with people. And after a while, people can be nice, but for so long. And after a while, those stories start to repeat themselves. And they go nowhere. And for the longest time, your family and your close friends can be nice about it. And they can look at you and smile as you repeat the same stories over and over and over. But after a while, even for them, it gets to the point where you'll start saying, well, when I was running this company, and then they finish the sentence for you. And you know they've had enough of it, that they've heard the story 1,000 times. Why do we insist on living in the past? When you became disabled, nobody put you in a box and said, that's it, your life is over. You're still able to live a life, as full a life as possible with your disability. You're not chained, you're not prisoned, you're not locked down. You still have a life to live. And you should be proud of the life that you're living. Not just sit on a sofa and veg out for the rest of your natural life. If you do, you're wasting the gifts God gave you. You know, there was a line in Bruce Springsteen's song. The song was called Glory Days. And the line goes, time slips away and leaves you with nothing, mister, but boring stories of glory days. That's right. And if you sit there and do nothing, that's all you have, and time is going to pass you by. And while it's passing you by, people are just going to leave. Think about it yourself. If you're around somebody who all they can talk about is what happened 50 years ago, that's all they can talk about. They have no clue about what's going on today. And they don't want to have a clue about what's going on today. But they think that you should be interested every time they tell you a story about what happened 50 years ago. What are you going to do? You're going to avoid that person. And you don't want people to start avoiding you. Does that make sense? If you're gonna live your life sitting on a couch or laying in a bed or just not doing anything, you're more than disabled. You're more than defeated. You quit. Nixon said it best. A man's not finished when he gets defeated. A man's finished when he quits. And if you're gonna quit, then quit. Quit, lay down, and wait to die. But you're not finished. You're not finished. Believe me when I tell you, when you became disabled, that was not the end of the line. I don't care what your disability is. I don't care. You could be a quadriplegic. It's not the end of the line. You can still think, and you can still plan for the future. And I'm not blowing my own horn, but I'm in a wheelchair, and I still have plans for the future. You're never too old. Believe me. Receiving disability isn't the end of the line. And too many disabled people think, well, I'm receiving disability, this is it. I've got my payments coming in, and that's going to pay my bills, and I don't want to risk it. Nobody's asking you to risk it, and I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. But you still have a mind, and you can still make plans. Is this it for you? Is this where you want to be for the rest of your life? On disability and just sitting there vegging out, getting moldy? I don't. I'm getting up there in age, believe it or not. And I'm not finished. I don't want to be finished. And the minute that you think you're finished, the minute that you decide that I'm not going to try anything else anymore, that's the minute that you quit. And that's the minute that you are finished. I know that I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to make it clear. As long as you're living and you're breathing and you have a pulse and your heart is beating, you're not finished. If you were supposed to be finished by this point, you'd be laying in a grave. Believe me, God has plans for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive today. If God didn't have plans for each and every one of us, we'd be laying under the grass instead of standing over it or sitting on it. We'd be under it. And I'm not trying to get holier than thou or make this a religious podcast. I'm not. I believe in God. Whatever you believe in, that's what's got to carry you through. And whatever you believe in, believe that there's other plans for you other than to just sit back and do nothing. you're a human being, your heart's still beating, your lungs are still taking in air, think about it. Even if it's a matter of helping other people, if it's a matter of helping the homeless, if it's a matter of helping the poor, if it's a matter of helping other disabled people. Now, I'm not talking about going out and physically doing things or moving things or anything like that. You are disabled, all right? I'm not getting crazy on you. But there's things you can do. You can donate. There's 1,000 things you can do from home. But you don't have to just sit and veg and do nothing. You can help, even if it's just a matter of writing letters or maybe getting involved on the internet. There are thousands of things that you can do. All you have to do is look. It's out there. It's out there, but don't just sit and veg. And, the other thing, too, is don't sit there and blame everybody else for you being disabled, because it's nobody else's fault. It happened. If you were in a car accident, nobody went out that day and said, I want to go out and I want to get into an accident with Jimmy and make sure he never walks again. That wasn't the case. You're not going to blame somebody else. You're there. It happened. Move on. Stop living in the past and start living in the present. And remember this, Social Security helps you go back to work. You can contact Social Security and they'll help you go back to work. Maybe you need to go back to school to re-educate yourself. They can help you do that too. So don't just settle for where you're at. Don't just settle and sit there and say, this is it. It's over. It's not over. It's not. Okay? Listen, thank you very much for stopping by today. I want to remind you, things can always be worse. Right now, there's somebody out there who's wishing and hoping that they were in your position. So things can always be worse, my friend. Look, have a great weekend. Let's get together on Monday because I have got some emails that I have to answer. And trust me, you're going to want to hear these. Some of them are doozies. They go back to that drug rant that I did. And I'll talk to you then. I'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. You've been listening to An Apple a Day, and I'm Jimmy Apple. Take care, my friends.
Thanks for listening to An Apple a Day with Jimmy Apple, your gateway to a happy, healthy life. Join our community at www.famousapple.com. See you next time.